Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Tuesday, April 11th. Welcome aboard, Alec Busse from thehoosier.com. How's it going, man?
Good. Happy to be joining the Indiana basketball beat, day 2. Hopefully day 2 isn't as busy as day 1, although Indiana fans might want it to be, considering some of the transfers they have been connected to. But yeah, excited to be starting a new job and be covering one of the most prestigious beats in college basketball.
Welcome in. And yeah, you came in at a very busy time, of course. Kel'el Ware committing a day before he was expected to announce any commitments, which is fine with Indiana fans. Just makes things rougher on those doing the work. But the fans don't really care about that. They're just happy to have landed the big man, who was a nice piece for Mike Whitson to add to his front court. And now he is pretty much set down there, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at some of the additions that he's made this offseason in the front court, it's pretty impressive. I actually really like the versatility and the ability that the three players have with Ware, Sparks, and obviously Malik Renew returning. They all kind of bring something a little bit different. Ware is more of your traditional or your more modern big. He's long, 7 foot, about 210, 220 pounds, somewhere in that range. Fairly skilled. He's not someone who's going to step out and shoot it a ton. Not a great passer yet, but he can kind of handle it a little bit, and he can guard a couple different positions defensively. We know what Malik Renew can kind of do defensively as well, especially when he's not fouling. That's something that he obviously struggled with a lot last year. But offensively, you know, Malik Renew's got a lot to kind of progress with and advance with. But I think with an increased role this year, without Trayce Jackson-Davis, without Race Thompson playing in front of him, that he's going to see a much larger opportunity to score the basketball, and he's going to be more featured. And then, honestly, Jim, I really like the addition of Peyton Sparks. Like, I feel like he's kind of the forgotten one in the trio, but he's someone who is a really good rebounder. I know it was
Energizer Bunny. I think he's going to be like an Energizer Bunny.
Yeah, he's a really good rebounder. Averaged about 8 or 9 rebounds in the MAC last year for Ball State. Had a game where he brought down 16 against Northern Illinois. And I think he's the type of body. I know he's a little bit undersized, like height-wise, but he's the type of body you kind of need in the Big Ten, especially when you kind of consider some of the bigs that are in the league or have been in the league. When you think about guys like Zach Edey, Hunter Dickinson, Kofi Coburn in the last couple of years, and Cliff Amore out there at Rutgers as well. So I know some of those guys are leaving. Some of them could be leaving, and some of them have decisions to make. But if there's one thing we know about the Big Ten, it's that it's probably going to have some pretty good center play.
And the other pieces that they need to fill, obviously now, shooters. And there are a few guys that have been mentioned early, and they're still there. One of those, Chris Ledlum, of course, from Harvard. Indiana had an in-home visit with him, and he was on campus the 6th through the 7th. That's one of the guys that they would really like to see come in. He's just he's just a good shooter, a solid player, obviously very, very intelligent, coming from Harvard, which always helps as well.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by Ledlum as well. His shooting percentages from the perimeter haven't always been great. In Ivy League play last season, he shot about 30% overall. It was about 29%. Guy that I really like as a floor spacer for them, though, is Dalton Connect, the Northern Colorado transfer. He's somebody else that they've had an in-home visit with. I don't know for sure if he's been on IU's campus or not, but he's someone who shot 38% from the 3 last season, had an effective field goal percentage over 55.5%. And Connect is longer. He plays a wing position as well, just like Ledlum does. But I think that both of them being in that 6'6", 220 to 220, that's kind of a tongue twister to say. Weight range is a really good kind of position that they need to add, because they don't really have a lot of wing depth right now with the departure of Miller Kopp and some of the other guys like Tamar Bates leaving the program for the transfer portal as well. They kind of need to add some wings. And I think that when you look at guys like Connect, when you look at guys like Ledlum, and then Deloach, the VCU transfer, another one that they have a lot of interest in, you put all those things together and you've got 3 kids who are all kind of in that position of being able to play the 2 or the 3.
Yeah, Dalton Connect is one of the kids that has not been on campus for a visit yet. Like they're still trying to make that happen. and there is potential for that to happen. Obviously, Indiana needing shooters and high volume ones. He is probably the guy that they are really going after, unless there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of. Caden Shedrick, of course, off the board now. He's gone. Jalen Deloche is now, he becomes his visit is set for this weekend, Friday and Saturday. But he's a 6'9", kind of a big forward. Now with Indiana having added Ware, is Deloche still fit into their picture?
I think that remains to be seen. I think he does, from the standpoint that they're bringing him in for a visit. So clearly Mike Woodson thinks that they need another piece like that. I think the big question is, if they do bring in Deloche and he were to commit, is his ability to handle the basketball away from the rim. He is, like you said, a forward, but he also has some ability to handle. He's not someone who's going to be an elite passer, but he can certainly find teammates who are open, spotting up for open shots. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, that this team still kind of needs is they just need ball handlers. Like, they need guys who can facilitate. They need guys who can pass to open shooters, who can create plays. I know there's a strong belief that Xavier Johnson will come back under a medical waiver from the NCAA for a redshirt season after breaking his foot at KU. But, you know, there are some possibilities that he doesn't get that. And if he doesn't get that, well, then there's some concerns about point guard play. We know that Jalen Hood-Schifino was awesome for them last season once he kind of got rolling, especially as they kind of ended that 3-game losing streak and then went on that 4 or 5-game win streak. And I think that was probably like January, early February. They didn't have another point guard that I feel like they could rely on to really facilitate. Trey Galloway did some really nice things for them, but he's pretty limited as far as a facilitator goes. So they might need to find another point guard. I know they've got some kids coming in, especially Gabe Cupps can kind of handle it as well. But you put all the things together, and I feel like they just need ball handling at this point more than anything, Jim.
Yeah, because I look at, you look at the stats between, say, someone like Jalen Deloche. He's never even attempted a 3-point shot, as opposed, and he's only 6'9", but then you look at Kel'el Ware, and he does. He will put the ball up from out there. And as a matter of fact, last year he shot 27%, which is not exactly lighting it up, but for a 7-footer in his freshman year, doesn't exactly sound terrible.
No, it doesn't. But there's other aspects of his game that definitely need to be refined and worked on a little bit more. Shot selection being one of those. You don't want him to be forcing those threes if he can get to the rim and use his length to create an open shot. But certainly, like, there's aspects and there's intrigue with Ware that I think maybe are what is so exciting about him. Obviously, if you look at his numbers from his freshman year at Oregon, he had a coach's decision DNP after a game at Colorado. He had a couple other games where I think he only played 9 minutes over 3 games. But the talent that he has is just undeniable. I mean, at 7 foot, he can stretch the floor a little bit. Like you said, he's really long. He's pretty athletic. And those are type of things that are really attractive to NBA teams. So if he comes in and he plays at a really high level and he plays at a level that is what his talent says he should be playing at, well, he's probably not going to be at Indiana for very long. But if he struggles a little bit, maybe they have him for a little bit and he can develop under Woodson and his staff for a couple of years and maybe turn into a pretty solid and pretty important college player by the time he's a junior or a senior. But like you said, like he needs to improve in certain areas. He only averaged 6.6 points overall last season, 5.3 points in Pac-12 play. He struggles a little bit with physicality and defending post-ups. Not a great rebounder either, just 3 rebounds a game. Slightly under that, actually, in conference play last season for Ware. Those are things that I have questions about as he moves to the Big Ten, but I think what Mike Woodson and his staff really showed over the last 2 years is an ability to really improve the play of a center. And it's hard to imagine that Trace Jackson-Davis wasn't going to be able to improve upon being an All-American and an All-Big Ten selection after his freshman and sophomore seasons. But he turned into one of the best players, if not the best player in the entire country by his senior season. And his motor was running high, especially as a senior, and he just played at a really high level. And I think if the Indiana coaching staff can press a lot of those same buttons for Ware, maybe they'll unlock some of the same things, and that'll unlock some of the talent that he has, which is undeniable.
And talking about Leland again, he was on his visit at the same time as Kel'el Ware, and they shared a dinner together. So you don't know, are the kids talking? Or are they talking now after he's committed? You never know. And you know, Leland is paying attention to that because they were here together.
Yeah, I think back to last transfer portal season, the Hunter Dickinson, TJ Shannon photo that kind of went out of them eating the steaks together in Ann Arbor, and then things kind of not going well up there with Shannon not getting or Shannon deciding not to go to Michigan and then transferring to another Big Ten school. That's just kind of what I think about with like this transfer stuff. Stuff just kind of seems to happen really fast. I mean, you can use Caleb Love as an example, right? A lot of people thought he was going to be a Hoosier or go to Mizzou, be a little bit closer to home, and then last minute, Michigan and Juwan Howard kind of come in with an offer, and he decides to go to Michigan. So I think anything can kind of happen and anything can change, especially in the transfer portal on a dime. But I also think that that's kind of the fun of the transfer portal. I think that's why fans like it so much. There's an intrigue to free agency. That's kind of what it's like in professional sports. And the transfer portal is fun to think about. Oh, we could be getting this guy, or what if we got this guy instead? And how does it all fit? Like, I think that's what's fun about the transfer portal. And what Leland would bring is another piece that Indiana potentially needs, especially if he can shoot it from a high level, especially if he can score it at the rim at a high level like last season he did. I mean, he shot close to 50% on 2-pointers last season, while averaging over 18 points a game, close to 18.5 points a game last season Leland had. And he's a solid rebounder as well at 8.5. Now, I think you can probably expect some of that stuff to go down a little bit in the Big Ten because, it's a better league than the Ivy League. But, there's certain areas of his game that you can maybe expect to see progress. His shooting numbers from the perimeter, I wouldn't be surprised if that improved with a little bit more spacing and less of an emphasis on him from opposing defenses. So those are things that you kind of have to consider as well.
Yeah, and there's going to be names that continue to pop up because Indiana has to keep their options open with the Connect thing not happening yet. I'm not saying that it won't. They have not gotten him on campus for a visit yet, though, and so that's not a good sign. If that doesn't happen soon, like real soon, that just doesn't seem like there's much playing out there because I can't imagine many of these guys wanting to take a whole lot longer because you've got to get into your new school. You've got to into your new teams, of course, probably not till June, but I would think you'd want to get that stuff out of the way because there's so much that goes with it. The NIL, finishing school. There's just a lot of things that are going on with these guys right now. And I would think that getting done with it sooner rather than later would be optimum.
Yeah, I think what you see with the transfer portal recruitments is that it's a lot different than high school recruitments. These kids seem to generally be a little bit more cognizant, maybe is the right word. I don't know if you feel like there's another word there, of making a decision that they're going to be happy with and making a decision that they want to stick with. Because especially now with the NCAA saying that they're not going to grant waivers for a
we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. For a second, especially for the kids whose coach got fired. Like good luck telling that kid he doesn't get a waiver. But I think kids are maybe more mature, maybe have a better understanding of what they're looking for in the portal, and maybe picking a school that they feel like fits them a little bit better than they did coming out of high school. So I think that a lot of that can maybe lead to making smarter decisions in the transfer portal for a lot of kids. And I think that sometimes you don't need a ton of time to make a smart decision. You just kind of got to look at your pros and cons list. And once you look at those, it can be kind of easy to make a decision, I feel like.